Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and the rest of you. This is Jolly Scholar 888 with Crypto Wednesday. Yes, you've noticed it's not Wednesday. Well, I'm working on it. At any rate, this is my story and my purpose in crypto. It's very apropos for the times, and I think, as usual, you're going to find it very fascinating. So let's start off with a big question. Is this a good time to buy? The answer is no. Not yet. Oh, let's see. I thought I had this trick down, huh? Voila. But it will be soon. So this is the time to get to know the cryptosphere. And it's a good time for me to tell you about how I got involved and really why I'm in it. And it's not to make money, though, of course, making money is it's always a great idea. But if you're going to get involved in the cryptosphere to make money or for whatever, and since Web3 is inevitable, you will have to know this sooner or later. Now, of course, if you're a codger like me, you may not, but if you're in your 20s and 30s, absolutely. You're going to have to know Web3, therefore you're going to have to know blockchain technology. Hopefully, it'll be decentralized, but we'll see how things work out. So, then of course we have to ask the inevitable question. What about the Sam Bankman-Fried fiasco? That's funny, huh? Bankman? Yeah, he exemplifies the problem with the fiat system bleeding over into the cryptosphere. He's a perfect example. And of course, again, his name's Bankman. He's the perfect example of the banks and the fiat currency and the globalist enterprise in general bleeding over into crypto and trying to appropriate it. So, what are the issues? The same. Centralization, right? What was the issue with Bankman-Fried? He ran FTX. Utterly centralized. It's a problem that a lot of people were pointing at, and we see the results. But what's the second one that's not so obvious? Regulation. And this is where people have different opinions on. What about regulation in crypto? Well, my stance is regulation is just the inevitable step towards centralization. Whatever has not been centralized, whatever has not been dominated by the centralized powers gets regulated, and that's how you then centralize it and dominate it. Furthermore, when you want to run a scam, where do you go? You go to the regulators, of course. It's been done over and over again with the Fed. It was done by Maddow in that scam. It was done by Fried, with his cozying up with Gensler, and of course buying off the Democratic Party, right? But it's the regulators, right? The lawmakers. That's exactly who you go to. So therefore, you know my opinion on it. Should this stop you from getting involved in cryptocurrency? No, absolutely not. This is actually going to be a good thing. It's blowing up. It's going to bring to a head the question of centralization and regulation. And of course, we're going to fight it tooth and nail. And if we fight it and defeat them on this front, we'll have done a huge service. So let's see if this bozo here actually, in the end, was a good thing for crypto. So let's look now at the spheres that you're going to have to at least get. It's a lay of the land. Now, of course, I encourage you to watch my blockchain to metaverse videos, which I'm also in the process of finishing, but the first 3 or 4 that I've already done will be very instructive. So we look at BTC, right? This is the father of all cryptocurrency and blockchain. It is the original blockchain, the original cryptocurrency. Satoshi Nakamoto, we don't know who he is. I've talked all about that in my introduction to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is proof of work. That was the original crypto proof, the security mechanism. Not just the security, but the mechanism itself, how a blockchain works at all. And the first one was proof of work. I'm not going to argue too much now, but something tells me that proof of work is how it should stay. I mean, not just Bitcoin. Bitcoin will never be anything but proof of work, but maybe all blockchains ought to be proof of work. So the problem with Bitcoin, and we're going to look at that with the crypto trilemma, which I brought up in my blockchain and metaverse on Ethereum. What is the blockchain trilemma? Right, you can see that right here. It is security, speed or scale, and centralization. That's the trilemma. And it goes like this. You can get any two, but it will be at the expense of the third. So even if you get these two really strong, the third one will be weak. And trying to overcome this has been the goal of every single blockchain developer, including Vitalik Buterin of Ethereum. However, what's wrong with Bitcoin? Well, it's enormously good on the security. It's never been hacked. And it's excellent on the decentralized. It is completely decentralized. So the decentralization leg is fully, it's excellent. However, it's very slow, very clunky. So could it replace the entire economic system, the fiat system? I would argue no, but now there are Bitcoin, what they call Bitcoin absolutists, that you see over there, and they argue that yes, it can. And the Lightning Network is supposed to enable it to do that. At least be the world's monetary system, the world's banking system. Not necessarily the transactional system. And that's still touch and go. People are still arguing on that. Can the Lightning Network speed up Bitcoin enough for it to replace the fiat system? I think as a proof of, as a store of value and as a basic monetary system of the world, this could happen. But it can't do smart contracts. I don't even think on the Lightning Network, at least not yet. So enter Ethereum with Vitalik Buterin. He's one of the most interesting people of our times. To me, he's for the crypto world what Elon Musk is everywhere else in the world of technology, of course. Well, actually, Elon Musk is more than just technology. He's a visionary, much more like Tesla. But that's another subject. So anyway, so we have Ethereum. Ethereum has the smart contracts. This is what will enable a replacement of the fiat banking system. And I talked about that in my Ethereum, my 2 Ethereum videos. Vitalik Buterin is the one that brought to prominence the whole question of the crypto trilemma. And he's also moved his entire blockchain, which is the backbone of a good, 80% of everything going on in the crypto world is still on Ethereum. And in spite of that, he has moved it to proof of stake. Now, I'm going to have a separate video to describe to you the difference between proof of stake and proof of work. I touched upon it in my Bitcoin video. However, for the sake of just brevity here, proof of stake uses a lot less power, a lot less electricity. And that was the big accusation of Bitcoin, is the enormous amount of power. Well, it's bogus. That's a lie, right? That's the whole ESG. It's the scam run by BlackRock and the World Economic Forum. No, Bitcoin is not a strain on the environment. That's absolute nonsense. Nonetheless, Ethereum, Vitalik wanted to go along with this for whatever reason, and went to proof of stake. He was not the first one. The first proof of stake was this guy Hoskinson of Cardano. We'll get that in a minute. But what's amazing that Vitalik has pulled off is that while Ethereum is a functioning blockchain, with most of the blockchain activity in the world going on Ethereum, he still has managed to make this transition to proof of stake with hardly a hiccup. Now, he's had delays, it's taken time, but my gosh, what an endeavor that is, and what an achievement. And it looks like he's pulling it off. So we also have then the altcoins. I talked about that with the altcoin explosion, and these are layer 2s. The layer 2s that work on Ethereum, which accounts for the majority of altcoins, these are separate blockchains that specialize in different activities, different functions, and they work on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So a layer 2 would be, for instance, one of the most famous is the Matic, Polygon. And its sole purpose is to actually alleviate the gas fees issue. And I talked about gas fees. That is, when you operate, when you trade money, when you buy something, when you do anything on Ethereum, you have to pay gas fees. As these gas fees became really problematic, they almost made it so that average people like me could not even function on Ethereum. We didn't bother with it. So Polygon stepped in to take a lot of the heavy lifting off of Ethereum for certain transactions like gaming, even for exchanging coins. And then do the transaction off of Ethereum, much cheaper, complete the transaction, and then put it back onto Ethereum for its security. So a whole other ecosystem has emerged around Ethereum. So Ethereum is still the, if Bitcoin is the grandfather, then definitely Ethereum is the grandmother, because that's where all of the proliferation has come from. It's come through Ethereum. So two people broke away from Ethereum to create their own layer 1 blockchains, and that's Cardano, that was Charles Hoskinson, and Polkadot with Gavin Wood. Both of these people worked with Vitalik on Ethereum. Cardano is a whole weird way that he approaches everything. It's very academic. It's very step-by-step. But supposedly it's going to be a huge improvement as far as smart contracts. I don't know. And of course, it was proof of stake from the beginning. That's almost his creation. Polkadot's very interesting configuration, and I'll talk about that. And then there's all these others: Solana, Algorand, Cosmos, Flow, Tron. There's literally probably hundreds, and maybe not hundreds, but tens, 20, 30, 40, 50, I don't know, many more. And each one of them specializes in some area. Solana was for speed. I talked about Solana in one of my Blockchain to Metaverse videos, and unfortunately, I liked Solana a lot. It was almost as fast as Visa, and it's now have some hiccups because in that trilemma, it did speed at the expense of both security. It got some hacks, and I mean, not a big deal, but still, but its functionality, it's not very decentralized. And so, for that reason, I hope it survives. I really liked it. But anyways, Algorand claims that they've solved the trilemma with its own kind of proof. It's not proof of stake or proof of work. Whatever. Why am I bringing this to your attention now? Well, if you're going to make a safe investment with as little investigation as you, say you don't really want to look too deeply into it, but you know that this is the future, it's the future now, you know that you want to put some money into it as a hedge for wherever else the economy goes. These are so safe. Bitcoin is not going to go away. It's not. You can do 2, 3, or 4 in the next 4 or 5 years, X, right? You could make at least 4 times your money in the next 4 or 5 years, maybe lose and gain, but you will do well if you invest in Bitcoin. This is not economic advice on my part. It's just everybody knows this. Unless some catastrophe happens and all cryptocurrencies hit the dust, the banking system overwhelms them, takes them over, puts them out of business. Could happen. I doubt it. Most people say that's never going to happen, especially with Bitcoin. It's just too powerful. So an investment in Bitcoin, 2, 3x, is almost assured. Ethereum, same thing, you should do well. Down here, it gets a little bit more risky. And we'll talk about my own mistakes that I made, but this is a little bit more risky. So if you don't want to do much investigation or keep up with it, just stick to investing up here and keep your eyes open. But the main thing you should understand, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the altcoins. And I have my videos on this subject. I think you'll find them very enlightening. And of course, I've always said, stay with Coin Bureau. That's if you don't have enough time to really investigate the crypto world, but just a set amount of time a week, watch the Friday updates from Coin Bureau. That's Guy Turner. Okay, so let's keep going. Then we have the exchanges, right? FTX is where all the caca hit the fan, run by Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried. It's a case of the problem with centralization, right? So the exchanges are where, and I've talked about that, it's like a stock exchange for cryptocurrencies. They also launch new projects on exchanges. But the exchanges are, again, where you go if you want, say you want to buy Ethereum or you want to trade your Ethereum for Solana. You go to an exchange and you can trade them. You can look into that as much as you like. As far as we're talking about here, you just need to understand what the exchanges are. Basically, that's what they are. Now, there are many exchanges, and they have different degrees of centralization and decentralization. So it's no surprise that the big crap that hit the fan was because of a centralized exchange, and that was FTX. and hopefully it's gone and gone for good. Now, the decentralized, like one that's called Unicorn, Uniswap, they're still functioning and doing quite well. But as an investment, well, you would have to look into this. So that depends on if you're interested in this and if this is something you'd want to. Well, that's one area you could look at, the exchanges. The next one is DeFi. Now, DeFi is a big deal because DeFi, if blockchain technology succeeds the way we hope it will, then DeFi, or decentralized finance, will become the way of the financial world of the future. Hopefully the future now, future present. And again, we have the whole question of decentralization, which by definition, a decentralized finance application is decentralized. And it's regulation resistant. So even if the regulators start to become involved, they won't be able to regulate something that's deregulatable, right? It's decentralized. You can't regulate it if it's decentralized. Now, how can they get around that and still block it from getting used? That's part of the ongoing crypto wars. Will they be able to do it? I don't know. We'll see. But this is something a bit more risky. And also, if you're not already pretty savvy with financial tools, right? Borrowing and lending with leverage, shorting, things like that. And if this doesn't interest you, stay away from any investment in DeFi. DeFi is for people who are really into financial transactions, making money in the finance markets. They obviously they have a fascination for it. They get into this. I don't. So I know enough. I know enough to know my way around. It's interesting, but it doesn't really interest me much. It's more interesting as a phenomenon that I witness and I see, and I say, wow, that's going to be huge. If the world begins to do most of their investments through decentralized financial mechanisms, this is going to be another blow against the entire fiat industry, the fiat globalization project. So as far as you needing to know about this, you do, not a whole lot, but you should at least be somewhat familiar with it. Investing, unless you're really into this kind of thing, I don't invest in them. Now, XRP is an animal all of its own, and it's a product of Ripple Laboratories. What's the purpose of XRP? Is to replace the SWIFT system. What is the SWIFT system? This is the total global banking system, at least most of the world, in which if you're going to make transactions from one bank to another bank, one currency to another currency, transnational, everything goes through SWIFT. What would happen if a decentralized blockchain replaces SWIFT? It'd be catastrophic for the global system. That's why they're busy trying to appropriate XRP. Hopefully they will not be able to. So this is something you definitely want to keep your eyes on. Now, they're involved, and I've talked about this before with the SEC, a lawsuit with Gensler. It's been going on for some time, and it looks like XRP is winning the lawsuit. So this is something you should definitely be aware of, because if XRP replaces SWIFT, this is another major shift in the entire way that the global financial institutions work. The whole global finance will forever be changed. So keep your eye on it. Do you want to invest in it? I would say if you're going to invest in blockchain and cryptos, you want to take this seriously, because if XRP does replace SWIFT, it's going to be pretty huge, and it should skyrocket its coin. Let's see. Now, NFTs. NFTs, you don't really invest in NFTs anymore. That was a fluke with the CryptoPunks and the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Those avatars, basically JPEGs on a blockchain. They're very cool. It was quite a phenomena, but I think the days of making any big investment in avatars and things like that, in these limited runs of 10,000 or 8,000, plus you have to be interested in it. You have to be fascinated, and you have to spend a lot of time. The main thing about NFTs is utility. The NFT utility will change the way we do business in day-to-day transactions. I pointed that out in one of my blockchain to metaverse, my introductory video. A simple thing like property deeds. Do you own your house? Well, if your deed is on a blockchain, on an NFT with utility, that you can actually transfer it, you can do things with it because it's programmed into the utility part of it as an NFT, you can see how valuable that would be. So land is just one area. There's so many. Even the avatars now. Well, let me put the avatar to the side. Look at the music industry. A musician has he has a new CD. He puts a limited number of 1,000 on a blockchain. Now, all the music will be available as MP3s for free everywhere, right? Because that's what happens. You can hardly stop it. Or he'll sell them for 99 cents as they do on his website. But they usually end up going to Spotify and other places, and people can, for a minimal amount, listen to it. They can listen on YouTube for free. They can usually listen to it for free no matter what. So what's the purpose of putting it as an NFT? Say you have 1,000. He sells it for $100. Makes a lot of money, $100,000. The value is that he can attach these NFTs. This CD will have value. In other words, let's say he programs it. The utility is that as he progresses in his career and makes money, everybody who owns an NFT of his CD will also make money. There'll be a kind of wealth distribution there. The NFT could carry with it, say, when he's on tour, you'll get front row seats or something, or you'll get backstage passes. See, this is how the NFT can work to add a lot of value to almost everything you can think of in the financial world, all transactions. So NFTs as a phenomena are fantastic. As an investment, I don't really see it. Maybe something will come up. Again, the avatar thing that's pretty done. Artwork as an NFT, investing in it, well, okay, could be. But again, you'd have to do a lot of homework. You'd have to really know what you're doing. So this is not for somebody who simply wants to live their life and then at least have a financial exposure, a footprint in the blockchain crypto world. I wouldn't go that route. But if you're really fascinated with this kind of thing, then of course, it's really interesting. I'm actually putting out some NFTs that I'm having made right now. But I digress. Okay, so then we look at gaming, right? There's on-chain gaming. Will on-chain gaming survive? We don't know. We don't actually know. Its selling point was play to earn and NFTs, which means you will own. Those of you who are into gaming know the whole dilemma, know the whole issue here. A lot of gaming companies don't want anything to do with blockchain or NFTs. Others are fanatically devoted to it. So what's the value? Well, if you understand gaming, let's say you've upgraded your sword, right? You're in one of those a sword and sorcery, single player that you're fighting one-on-one. I'm not that into gaming, though I'm getting fascinated by it. But you've upgraded your weapon. It's a sword, some machine guns, whatever. And you've done that by playing a lot and spending a lot. Well, before blockchain NFT gaming, you didn't own it, right? The game could actually take it away from you at any time. One of the promises of online chain gaming is that you will own it and you can actually transfer it even to some other games. So it's interesting. A lot of people are for, a lot of people are against it. Nonetheless, you would not want to invest in gaming unless you knew a whole lot about it and you're gambling on a certain game really taking off. Otherwise, you get involved in gaming because you love it. And that's the real purpose. And we saw that here in the famous Axie Infinity. Had you invested in Axie Infinity, say, a year ago, you would have made a lot of money. And of course, the play to earn made a lot of money for people in the Philippines, not here in the West so much. Nonetheless, Axie Infinity has since crashed because the play to earn is proving that it's really unworkable, right? It's like a gambling casino. You can't possibly have any sizable portion of the people who go to a casino winning. I mean, you couldn't, right? The casino couldn't survive. So it's stacked against you. You're supposed to lose, but you're supposed to enjoy losing. You're supposed to have fun losing. And then you have that little tiny, tiny number of people who actually make a living in gambling. But most people don't make a living gambling. That's crazy. So stay away from gaming, really, unless you're just fascinated with it. And of course, gaming gave way to the metaverse. The metaverse is basically gaming. And even before a blockchain. So on-chain metaverses, we have the same advantages with NFTs. The main thing is VR, virtual reality, and augmented reality. Can you invest in the metaverse? Well, we're seeing a problem here, and that is that mass adoption is not happening as quickly as we thought it was just 8 months ago, 6 months ago. It looked like mass adoption was around the corner. Well, it's not. And so those people who invested in Sandbox, Decentraland, Blocktopia, and I'll talk about my experience. I did invest in Decentraland. Owning land or space in the metaverse. That's all interesting, extremely speculative. Again, I would not get involved in the metaverse except to enjoy it, to experiment with it, because this is Web3. How fascinating is this going to be in the near future? It's going to be marvelous. But as an investment, it's still risky. I would investigate this just so you know something about it. You should know. If you're 20 or 30 years old, you need to know a lot about this. If you're older, you don't need to, but heck, you should. I'm getting involved now with metaverse and virtual reality. I think it's fascinating. And I'll keep everybody apprised of my progress there as well. Now, augmented reality is something that's going to be fascinating too, because it's even more useful. Well, I won't say more. But this is where you walk around the real world. Remember, I talked about this in my introduction to blockchain and metaverse. And you can actually, because you have glasses on, you can interact with the world around you. You're walking in the real world. You're not sitting in a room with, immersed, deep immersion virtual reality. You're in the real world, but you're getting help. You're getting information. You're getting things coming to you. You can interact with, through the metaverse, interact with the real world, or interact with the real world and have effects in the metaverse. So this is fascinating also, but investment-wise, it's a little bit in the future. But here we go, infrastructure. This includes everything that has to do with blockchain, and especially gaming and metaverse. The amount of processing that's going to be required for all this is enormous. So those companies that specialize in memory, speed, basically storage of data, storage and processing, but that's agnostic as far as they'll do it for any application. They'll do it for metaverses, they'll do it for AR, VR, gaming, NFTs. These companies are going to do extraordinarily well. And I will do a video on just companies who are building infrastructure for blockchain technology. So that's a little bit in the future. Oh, wait a minute, let's get a little ahead of myself. So basically, as far as you're concerned, is this a good time to invest? No, you have to wait for the bottom to really hit. It still hasn't hit yet. Believe it or not, it could get worse. But once it moves again, it's going to be fabulous. Will there be those huge 100x, 1000x gains? No. A Bitcoin, Ethereum, you'll be lucky if you get 4 or 5 in the next 4 or 5 years. However, a 4 or 5x return on your money, say you put 10,000 and in 5 years, it's 50,000. Or let's say it's 100,000 in 5 years. In fact, what if it does the 4x right away in the next bull run, and you do 4 or 5x right away, and you have, I don't know, 20,000 invested? It's going to be very valuable. So this is the safe bet. It starts to get a little bit more dicey here. I would even stay away from them unless you're fascinated with DeFi. Now, this is a place that you want to go. If you're a financial person, you like to play the game of international and national finances and trade in commodities, and you like all that, this is going to be fascinating. For the rest of us, it's not fascinating, and you can lose your shirt. This I would stay away from. XRP, absolutely keep your eyes open, because if they finish with the lawsuit, it looks like they're going to win it, and if they succeed in replacing SWIFT for the whole world monetary system, my gosh, XRP is going to take off. NFTs, unless you really are interested and want to play around in that space, avoid it. Gaming, same thing. This is for people who just love it. Otherwise, as an investment, you'd have to do too much homework. Likewise for metaverse, unless you just pick a big one like Sandbox or Decentraland, that's almost sure to do well. It's up to you, but you're going to have to wait. It's going to have to precede the mass adoption, which is not around the corner, unfortunately. Infrastructure, this will be a major investment strategy, but you have to know what you're doing. So there we go for that. Okay, so now my little story. How did I get into this, by the way? I've been a musician all my life, philosopher. How did I get this? Well, I started off with my company, which I'm not going to talk about here, but I have 5 patents involved with technology, but also making things. It's called the Aurora Bright Bikes, if you want to look that up. But how did I get into crypto? Well, I've wanted to for a long time, and I didn't think I could because I thought I had to buy an entire Bitcoin. Now imagine, I was out there really struggling in Tampa, and I thought $300 was, I couldn't afford it because I was putting all my money into my company. And boy, was that stupid. At any rate, so came back here to the DC area, and there I was sitting around, and I think this is one of the great men of our century. Not just because he's brilliant with his technology, but he's a visionary. And I think I agree with Guy Turner. He is a humanist. He loves humanity. He wants what's best for humanity. People can say what they want about him, good and bad. Everybody has their flaws. I think he's one of the great movers of our time. Unlike Thomas Edison, though, who was an asshole, brilliant, but an asshole, Elon Musk is not. He's a true humanitarian, more in the vein of Tesla, which is why he named his car the Tesla. So I've been following him. My brother bought a Tesla, and he gave me a ride in it. I said, wow, it's fantastic. And I bought a biography on of Elon, and I was fascinated with the fellow, and I started looking into his SpaceX. Is just mind-blowing. A rocket landing like in science fiction movies, re-landing. It's the first guy to do that. Okay, then of course the cars. All right. So he starts talking about Dogecoin. I would never touch this. I said, what the hell, you know? I like the guy. He's talking about Dogecoin. Okay. I put in a measly little amount, you know, and 2 days later I doubled my money. 3 days later it tripled. I said, well, wow, that's interesting. I started looking at it. I said, well, I'll put a little bit more. So I kept doing that, and you know, I didn't have much money, and I didn't take it very seriously. But I guess by the end of it, I 8x'd my money. So, but did I get out in time? Well, we'll get there. I did, but it was sure luck. But that's how I got into it, believe it or not. My whole fascination with Bitcoin as a techno-anarchist, developing my ideas, was that Bitcoin is being a replacement of the banking system. But I didn't really look deeply into it until I got myself involved in Dogecoin, and I started doing all the massive research, and just I've been fascinated ever since. The entire blockchain world is so much more interesting than I ever thought it was. I had no idea. So for that alone, I thank Mr. Elon Musk, just because by getting me to do this little lark by investing in this meme coin, I really started taking blockchain seriously and studying it, and then investing a little bit more seriously. So, what were my big mistakes? I'll get to that before I do my successes, and there's a reason for that. Okay, I didn't understand market cap. Well, I also didn't understand that I could just buy into Bitcoin without owning a Bitcoin or an Ethereum. So, my first big mistake was market caps. As things were running in the bull run, which I had never experienced, I didn't know anything about bull runs and whatever. I invested because I thought I could not invest in Ethereum because it was too expensive. Actually, I could have. So I went to Polygon Matic, which is supposed to be an auxiliary blockchain to Ethereum. It was selling for very little, and I said, okay, good. That'll be my kind of Ethereum substitute. I'll buy Polygon Matic. And then I said, well, the big competitor of Ethereum, that time everybody was raving about Cardano. I'll try not to talk too much about Cardano, but whatever. It was brilliant in its own way, I suppose. And I made nothing, because I got into it up here, right? The bull market was moving up, and Polygon and Cardano had already 100x'd. There was no more. There was no more impetus in there. The market cap was too large. But I was looking at the price because I did understand market cap. So let me explain it very simply my own way. You're at the top of a cliff, right? Now, as the metaphor goes, you're really talking about the opposite. You want to push something up, the price goes up. But just look at something going down, the price is going up. So along this cliff, along this very steep incline, you have a huge boulder, you have a medium-sized boulder, a rock, and then you have a small rock. All right, you want to get them moving down the hill. Well, the effort that it takes to get that huge boulder to go down the hill is proportional to how large it is. That's its market cap. The amount of leverage you need to get that boulder to start rolling, to get it to 2x, if you're a Bitcoin, is now probably billions of dollars, but definitely millions and millions of dollars. You have a medium-sized boulder, doesn't take so much. A couple of enough people come in with a decent amount of money, they can get it going. A small market cap, which Mr. Becker likes to call the juicy ones, you can just basically kick it. If somebody comes in with enough money, they just kick it and it starts to roll. It starts making a lot of money. And those are the prime sources for what they call pump and dumps, because you can invest in that and then lose everything immediately. It'll jump up, you'll have all this money, and if you don't grab it and get out really quick, you lose everything. So that's the relative risks involved, right? The small caps are way more volatile than these large market caps. But to make a lot of money, it's very difficult to make it in the large market caps. So I got into Polygon and Matic way too late. Even though their price was low, I could afford it easily, it didn't do any good. So I put 1,000 into each one of them, and they went nowhere. Nowhere. It just kept going up and down, the same. And meanwhile, all I had to have done was invested in anything else, any other layer one, any layer one at all. I could have just spat on a bunch of layer ones, and whatever it landed, or thrown that dart, and I would have done at least 5, 6, or 8x. As it is, I did finally realize that this was going nowhere, figuring out the whole market cap thing. Solana had already pumped pretty hard, so had Aave, but I got into them and I did make some money. So it wasn't a total loss. But my mistake was I didn't understand market caps, because if I had, I would never invested in Polygon, Matic, or Cardano. I would have gone straight to Solana, Aave, Flow, Cosmo, any one of these. And I would have done at least about 8x. Well, you live and learn. For other people, they've said I've done very well for my first entrance into investment period, but blockchain, my first bull run. So let's take a look at what I lucked out in. Well, I lucked out with a Dogecoin, obviously. Because I pulled the money out in time, Avalanche and Solana, I did okay. I did a 2x, not an 8x, but okay. But I also got into Decentraland really quick because I was paying so much attention. I already liked Decentraland. I was getting ready to invest in it because I was getting fascinated with the metaverse. And then Zuckerberg came up with the, coining the term meta and metaverse. And all of a sudden, Decentraland just took off, and I happened to be right there. And I was situated so I could just put money in. I did a 3x. Didn't make a ton of money or anything, but I did luck out there. But why did I not lose everything afterwards? Right, because everything hit the fan. And I did invest another 4,000 in others later on, thinking that the bull market still had some air. Well, nobody thought it was going to crash this hard. And that 4,000 is sitting at, it's not at zero, but it's definitely sitting there, right? So how do I extricate myself from that when the bull run comes? Put money into those same, because they're very good. They're very good investments. I mean, everybody went badly, so they'll make their money back, but they probably won't make me anything. I mean, I don't know. I can't speculate too much on that. However, why did I exit at the right time? It's because I had to. I needed money. That's all. So most of my money, I actually ended up not getting crushed by the market crash because I'd already pulled it out. Not because I'm so brilliant or as a strategy. I had to. I needed the money real bad, and I just pulled it out. So I was very sad at the time, but now I'm very glad. So there you go. That's my little story of crypto. And if you follow my blockchain, the metaverse, you can see that I've really gotten into it. I think it's one of the most fascinating things in the world right now. Okay, so let's take a look at this. These are two things I'm very interested in. I talked about getting into gaming only if you love it. Well, there's a reason why I'm fascinated with gaming beyond playing the games, which is actually not my big deal. I'm not that interested in playing the games. I'm interested in them as a phenomenon, and I'll explain that shortly. But of all the games that I looked at, and if you follow me, you know that I was promoting Star Atlas. Star Atlas, I hope it turns out to be as cool as I think it's going to be. I don't know. some people say that you can do all these really excellent promotional videos, but it has nothing to do with what the game will look like. I've looked into the game now, actually looked into it, and it's looking pretty damn good. But the strategy inside of it is the real, for me, fascination. And I'll get to that. Gala, I'm invested in. It's definitely, it's one of those that's sitting down there at the bottom now. But why am I fascinated with Gala? Because Gala Games it's all blockchain, decentralized, at least fairly well decentralized. Well, at this stage, it's still centralized. Hopefully, they're moving more and more towards decentralization. But why am I fascinated with Gala? Because they are moving not just game. It's not one game. It's a complete gaming industry. They're a gaming company. But they're also moving into entertainment, like music and film. So they're going to be involved in blockchaining entire segments of the entertainment industry. If they succeed, this could be huge. So you might want to follow me. Keep your eye on what I'm doing in Gala, because I am invested in Gala, and I think Gala could be. It could grow. It could go huge. It could crash and burn. Who knows? But it's definitely something to keep your eye on, because if they succeed, it'll be a huge impact on the entire entertainment industry. And you can buy a node, which I'm doing. You can get, in other words, you can be part of the ecosystem by actually having your computer be one of the nodes of the blockchain. So it's interesting. I think it is. Now, so what is so compelling about the crypto space in all its functions for myself and others in the anti-globalist movement? Well, that says it right there. The anti-globalist movement. That's what's so fascinating about Bitcoin and blockchain technology. It is, as I will say here, it's an antidote. Each cryptocurrency, each blockchain, each gaming platform is an experiment in alternative economic systems based, for the most part, on decentralization. Each gaming platform, blockchain, cryptocurrency, has to take on the issues of inflation. I learned about inflation by studying cryptocurrencies. Not by studying inflation, how it works in the real world, but how inflation works in what they call the tokenomics. I had to understand how when you're investing, you need to know what the tokenomics are. That is it deflationary or inflationary? And how do they compensate for it? So each one of these platforms, each one of these blockchains, each one of these games, even each game, has to take into mind inflation, interest, profit, and sustainability through, hopefully, decentralization. So these are experiments in anti-globalization all on their own. In the real world, each blockchain ecosystem has to resist centralization, manipulation, and monopolization. Not just by hackers and internal manipulators, which is what happened with FTX, right? Because it was decentralized, right? So you have to worry about hackers. You have to worry about internal problems within the system. But that's not all. You also have to worry about the banking system, the globalists, moving in on you to try and appropriate any successful venture and drag it into the fiat world, right? Drag it into the banking world. That's who they represent. Hackers, internal manipulators by hostile entities from the fiat banking system. So they have both. And sometimes there's actually the same entity no matter what, as it was with FTX. What we're seeing with Sam Bankman-Fried is his connections with the fiat system from the beginning. Things are now starting to emerge. I'll do a video on this, that he was way more connected, as was, by the way, Epstein, with the economic side. It wasn't. Epstein was not just involved in this child trafficking thing. That was secondary. He was up to his ears in global finances, and that's why he got dissed. However, FTX, or Mr. Bankman-Fried, he has bought so many people in the Democratic Party, and even some in the Republican Party, and the financial system at all, that he may get through it unscathed. Who knows? So in this way, the cryptosphere represents an ongoing multitude of developing strategies for creating alternative economic systems for toppling the current banking system. All of these people, for their own ends, trying to make money, trying to get ahead, right? Innovation. But they're all having to deal. If they're committed to decentralization, blockchain technology and decentralization, they have to solve the problems of inflation, deflation, interest, sustainability. And they also have to do, of course, with the outside forces, with the ESG scam, which is what Boutron was trying to do by going to proof of stake. Proof of stake, which I don't think anybody should do that. It's a total scam, but nonetheless, it represents, okay, you're saying that it's a threat to the environment. Okay, well, we'll change things, but we won't change decentralization. We won't change blockchain technology and allow it to be monopolized, but we will get around the ESG and your climate scam. So it's innovation, and Vitalik Buterin is brilliant. So beyond that, there's something else I find very promising about specifically the gaming sector, which is what I was talking about with Star Atlas. Gaming should be used to model strategies for systems of resistance, or could be used. Resistance to the monopolization of power. Protocols that would block the monopolization of power before a monopoly of power could manifest itself. This is one of my founding principles that I call non-oppressibility, is to create systems of resistance to block the monopolization of power before it even manifests. And if it does manifest to some degree, it's never enough that it can threaten you. I use that, the strategy that I'm employing is that once they realize whoever's trying to dominate you, whatever group is trying to dominate this group, this sector, if they realize that the expenditure of energy and resources that it would take to dominate you isn't worth what they plan to gain by dominating you, then they have to go into negotiation. They have to rethink their strategy, unless they're stupid or unless they're maniacs. And there's never any way to stop the maniacs from acting out. I mean, by definition, right? So that's just part of the human condition. But today's banking system is not necessarily run by maniacs, but it is run by opportunists. And it's so easy to do. It's so easy to dominate. It's so easy to manipulate. I mean, look at this bozo, Sam Bankman-Fried. Look what he pulled off. He might even get away with it. As we talked about with Bernie Madoff, the only reason he didn't get away with it is because his sons turned him in, not the regulators. And again, I went through that already. I want to beat a dead horse. Regulation equals manipulation. So that's what's so fascinating to me about gaming. So the crypto world in general represents an ongoing multitude of developing strategies for creating alternative economic systems for toppling the current fiat banking system. So the more cryptocurrencies you have, the more blockchains, the more you have people thinking of how to do this. And sooner or later, or maybe it's already done, they're figuring out how to completely block the global system. It just hasn't been adopted yet, mass adoption. Bitcoin, if it became mass adopted right now, could possibly do it on its own, as is. But to make things easier and more accessible for mass adoption, we have a multitude of blockchains and brilliant people all working on how to create an alternative economic system based on blockchain technologies, based on decentralization. And then furthermore, the gaming world, which again is what created the metaverse, the gaming world is a really fascinating place because there you can actually play out strategies. You can work strategies of resistance and test them. And that's why I'm so fascinated with Star Atlas, because it seems to have the potential for someone to create a complete economic system or economic strategy within the game. And so if you set up opposing forces, you could start testing out ways to resist monopolization, centralization. Anyways, you may think it's far-fetched, but I'm fascinated with the idea, so that's where I'm going. So again, what's the issue? Blockchain as a major weapon in the development of techno-anarchism and the continuation of the great reversal that was initiated by the great American experiment. I see decentralization and blockchain technologies as the quintessential great American experiment. The great reversal continuing. Now that America is so threatened, the entire great American experiment is so threatened today by the Democratic Party and the globalists, and certain elements even of the Republican Party, that America may cease to exist as it was founded. So maybe the only continuation of the great American experiment will be through these blocks, what I'm calling bolts, of techno-anarchist enclaves or techno-anarchist spheres of influence. So we'll see. I'll be developing that further. My black paper is coming out soon. But at any rate, that's what's at issue. Blockchain is a weapon, a major weapon against the globalists, a major weapon towards preserving the great American experiment. That's the issue. What's at stake? Exactly that. The great American experiment. The freedom of the individual to formulate a vision of their own personal destiny, or happiness as it's phrased, and to pursue that destiny to whatever degree they can within communities of their own choosing. So, what is that against? Versus? Well, I've been talking about it. A state-imposed destiny, a state-imposed identity, a state-imposed community, directed by and directed for the benefit of the parasitic class. And we're going to talk a lot about the parasitic class. So what are we talking about as far as institutions? The World Economic Forum, a class of parasites attempting to engineer the future human society for all of humanity, what they call the Great Reset. Imagine these people. Klaus Schwab, who's never done a thing in his life, never contributed anything, never made anything, and he wants to design, engineer the future society for all humankind. Well, I won't say what's coming to my mind. Okay, how is he going to do that? How is the parasitic class going to do that? By leveraging the fiat banking system, first of all, of course. And right now, ESG is a major step in that direction. I mean, that's one of their most powerful pincers, with BlackRock at the helm. The climate change racket. That's how they're managing to strangle companies who would resist. They're strangling major corporations and sectors into submission by denying them investment funds. Right? I've talked about that in my last video. I don't want to go over it here. Please check out my last videos on this subject. 13 and 14. Dispatches 13 and 14. You will see how BlackRock is doing this and how nefarious this company really is. We looked at the World Economic Forum has their own Business 20 instead of the G20, the Business 20. They were at 2022 at Bali, right? The World Economic Forum was at Bali for the B20. Well, what else was going on there? The G20, right? Here's where the people who are supposedly elected, the government's elected, and here are the nonprofits, the non-governmental organizations, the basic corporations, at the same place, the same time. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, right? This is just right in your face. And of course, the World Economic Forum, Mr. Klaus Schwab, has bragged about how he has infiltrated governments at the highest levels. He brags about this. I've showed you the videos. Trudeau and Macron are his children. Not literally, but his acolytes, his disciples. At any rate, that's what we're up against. So, and I go back and forth with Michael Saylor, but I love this quote of his. Bitcoin is an ideology. You can't kill an ideology unless you kill every last person on earth who believes in the ideology. And the ideology is freedom and sovereignty manifested in a technology protocol. This is precisely what I have been talking about since I first started this channel. That blockchain is a manifestation of the principles of the Constitution. I don't have time to go into detail of that, but that's what it is. And the Constitution actually still goes too far. It would have been better had we stuck to something closer to the Articles of Confederation, but that's a whole nother subject. I call this American pragmatism. It's the opposite of ideology. I would not use the term ideology, but I understand how he's using it. Ideologies I regard as a short circuit of the brain, kind of the thinking process going into a feedback loop. They're like if it gets caught in a microphone with the speakers. It gets louder and louder and goes out of control till it breaks the speaker. That's what I think of ideologies. So I'm saying it's not an ideology. It's American pragmatism. It's technology. It's science moving towards the concept of freedom and sovereignty. The individual who owns himself and owns his own assets and therefore can pursue his own destiny. That's what I call American pragmatism and the goals for me of techno-anarchism. And I see blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, as a major, major step in that direction. So, with that, brief conclusions. Fiat is a tool created by the parasitic class. Absolutely it is. Deliberately. It's always been that way. As soon as we got off the gold standard, it became even more obvious. Decentralized blockchain cryptocurrency is an antidote. So, stay tuned for the latest on the ongoing crypto wars with an analysis by Coin Bureau, Mr. Turner, Guy Turner, and this is going to be really interesting. It's the latest moves by the fiat banking system towards the appropriation of crypto. This is it's the crypto wars. They're not over, they're just beginning. So as I've said many times before, hashtag defund the universities, hashtag defund NPR, hashtag defund PBS, hashtag abort Planned Parenthood, and of course, hashtag get crypto. Get into crypto. Now's the time. Racist! Fascist! Ready for the moment of congratulations. Never fucking change my life.